Good afternoon, everybody, and this is Burke Lyle, and today is Monday, October 28th. And just to point out, 1 year ago today, the Red Sox won the World Series as they beat the LA Dodgers in 5 games. I remember Chris Sale closing out the World Series, and the Red Sox celebrated their 4th World Series in 15 years. Well, tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, and the Astros are 1 win away from winning their 2nd World Series in 3 years, and possibly being maybe the 2020s version of the Red Sox potentially. So what I want to get to right now is I'm going to talk the World Series right now. Once again, I'm doing another World Series video. So again, how I felt 72 hours ago, to then 48 hours ago, to then even 24 hours ago. Every 24 hours, I start feeling worse and worse about the Nationals. They have a 2-0 lead going back to Washington. And I'm going to be honest, at about, I don't know, let me tell you something. On Friday afternoon, I'm going to be honest with you. The Nationals had a 2-0 lead. I was feeling great. I'm sure the team was feeling great too. Since they win 2 out of 3 in Washington, they are world champions. That's all they have to do. And you're thinking, boy, they're gonna win the World Series in Washington. It's gonna be so much fun. And you know what I started doing? Listen, everybody. I talk the Nationals all the time. It is clear I'm a Nationals fan. And all you YouTube listeners, I said this on my very first video. I am a Nationals fan. I think I even wore a Nationals hat for some of the early episodes I did, even when I talked football. And starting during the playoffs, you know what I did? I've been wearing a Nationals hat throughout the playoffs, and I've been celebrating the Washington Nationals throughout the playoffs. It is clear now. Every listener now should all know that I'm a Washington Nationals fan. Yes, I love Major League Baseball. I love watching the Astros. Yet, for the first time in the World Series, I'm watching not as a fan of baseball, but as a fan of a team. And I was frustrated. Games 3 through 5. I mean, there's so many frustrating moments. Game 1, and especially Game 2, is like a party. I thought I was having so much fun. Right? And you know what I did on Friday afternoon? Since I thought they were going to win the World Series. Now, I didn't spend any money. But here's what I did. I started going online to Expedia. I was looking at hotels, Arlington, Virginia. Since I wanted to see, okay, where am I going to stay for the parade? I was looking at how to get to Washington, D.C. for the parade. Since I figured they're going to win in 4 or 5. And I thought I'd be on my way to Washington, D.C. right now, or perhaps even in Washington, getting ready for the parade. And I thought I was going to go to a parade. Like, I was planning for it. I was basically making plans to go to the parade, and I was figuring out, okay, as soon as they win the World Series, I'm on my way. I will be on the next ride, the next flight, the next megabus, whatever, Amtrak. The schedule doesn't work out. It's not convenient right now. I'm really in a rush to get to Washington. I'm on the next ride over to Washington, D.C. I'm going to be at that parade. And I figured out I was going to a parade. Well, that all changed. When you think about World Series tickets, let me tell you something. If I was in Washington last night, if I was there, I would have spent $500. I would have gone to game 5. I said, you know what? People have waited 86 years for a World Series in Washington. I mean, you think about it, the Senators, and I did a history video last week. The Senators, in the 30 years before they left, they went 30 years without any success whatsoever. And granted, that was in the era of the American League, where you had 1 team per league make it. It was basically the Yankees. That was it. That was baseball back then, really. It's a miracle how the Senators managed to win 3 pennants in an era where the Yankees of the 20s and 30s of Ruth, Gehrig were constantly dominating, including back-to-back. right? So there was a period of time where the Senators had just as many World Series titles as the Yankees. It was 1-1. Well, since then the gap is not even close. Washington has just one World Series. New York and the Mets have won 2. I think the Giants won 1. The Dodgers have won 1. So if you want to put all that together, I think it's a combined. And the Giants' early days really dominating. New York has won over 30 World Series as a city. Washington has just 1, right? So that's kind of interesting. The point being, if you were there on Friday night, and there was Nationals fans that were there all 3 games for sure. If you were there Friday night, walking to the ballpark Friday afternoon, catching batting practice, there's so much buzz in there. There's so much excitement. So then leaving the ballpark on Sunday night, you gotta go to work tomorrow. When you wake up, you'll be reminded of what happened this weekend, right? That's gotta be a tough feeling, for sure. And granted, I thought they were gonna win Game 3. For sure, I thought Game 3 they would probably win. Game 4, I thought, okay, they got Game 4. That was the big one. Those were the games they kind of had to win to really take control of the series. In Game 5, and we'll get into more detail of this later on, Max Scherzer scratched, and I'm thinking, it's Joe Ross against Garrett Cole. That's almost not fair. It's almost not fair to have that happen to you, where last minute Joe Ross is called on the pitch against Garrett Cole. And the result we saw last night was exactly what happened. So of all the games in Washington, could they have won Game 2, 3? Yes, they could have. Could they have won Game 4? I don't know. Maybe, no. But let's face it, the Astros 8-1, 7-1 have outscored the Nationals 15-2, including 19-3 in this series. No game, except for Game 3, was really one where you thought they had a fighting chance. So let's kind of go through what's going through my mind in games 3 through 5. So in Game 3, which was critical, you thought, okay, right away you think they have an opportunity with Juan Soto up to the plate. Rendon's on second. You're excited. First pitch, slow curveball from Greinke, ground out. That's it. And then second inning. This is when it starts. Before, Josh Reddick's up. Carlos Correa's on second. Slow opposite field single. 1-0 Astros. That's what they're good at, putting the ball in play. And this was a theme throughout the series, especially in games 3 or 4. It reminded you of what the Yankees were doing against the Astros in the LCS, where I talked about that consistently about 2 weeks ago. So the Nationals have runners on first and second, no outs in the second. Kurt Suzuki strikes out. This is Game 3, and Victor Robles, you know what he does? Grounds into a double play. You figure they get at least 1 run since Robles is a fast runner. It's third inning. As Asdrubal Cabrera strikes out with the bases loaded in the third inning. Again, it's still a close game at the time. I think it's 2-0 then, and he strikes out. And here's a spot that was very critical, talked about around baseball over the weekend. Big story. 4th inning, Victor Robles hits a triple. It's 2-1. There's 1 out. Again, Robles is batting 8th, and Anibal Sanchez comes up. 1 out, runner on third. You need contact. Now here's the thing about this Nationals team. They don't have a bullpen. So what are you going to do? You have an opportunity to tie the game right there. But you send Sanchez up to bat. Now that's critical, for one thing. I mean, do you keep riding the starter? You know, he's got a couple warnings. If it was the regular season, he'd have absolutely, of course. But, again, you're up 2-0 in the World Series. You can tie the game. And maybe a rally extends and you ignite a rally. Yeah, you let Sanchez bat. You need contact. Put up anybody. Put up Parra. Do the baby shark. Get the crowd fired up. That's what you needed right there. Maybe take Sanchez out of the game. He had 60 pitches at the time. It wasn't exactly cruising by any means. He had given up 2 runs already. Maybe you say, okay, we're going to do a bullpen game. Maybe it's, which granted, you had no idea Joe Ross would be needed 2 days later, obviously. But maybe you just say, you know what, we're just going to do starting pitching. We're going to get rid of it. We need this win. And you know what? Davey Martinez, who has managed aggressively throughout this playoffs, decided to stick with the pitcher, which normally, hey, I'm all for starting pitchers. You know, if the starting pitcher has it, he's completely dominant, you take him out. That's like, okay. sometimes I question that. I'm a big fan of starting pitching as anybody. But right then and there, I think you should have pinch hit. Now, again, if Trey Turner would have come through, then it would have been different. Nobody came through there. You left the runner on third. So in the fifth inning, Zach Greinke gets chased. And Greinke pitched fairly well. I mean, he pitched fairly well. He really mixed his pitches around. You know, he did a great job of getting out of jams. You know, did just well enough. Could have, you know, throughout this playoffs, whether he really struggled against Tampa, or I remember Game 4 in New York. It was the Yankees really got to him. It was back in Game 4. So I remember start right. The Yankees had an opportunity to do it. Same thing here. It's a very similar story where he gives them all sorts of opportunities to really score a lot of runs. They don't do it. Instead of scoring, I don't know, 4, 5, or 6 runs, they get 1 run, and Azurdo Cabrera hits a double off the wall. And that's it for Greinke. And Ryan Zimmerman comes up, runners on second, third. So here's the big difference. Josh James comes in. Zach Greinke, it's kind of funny. His fastball and changeup and velocity are so different. Like, I use pitch track. You know, I kind of watch pitch track, you know, on the at-bat app during games, right? And I see what happens. I see Greinke throwing a fastball 89, 90, and then changeup 87, 88. They're almost identical. They're almost identical at this point in his career. There really isn't much of a difference at all. Obviously, mixing the slider in, the slow curveball, it's right around 70 miles per hour. So use those pitches, right? So Greinke pitched fairly well. So Josh James against Ryan Zimmerman, runners on second and third, 2 outs. You think Zimmerman just come through, just get a single in the game's tied. And this is completely different, you know. And for Zimmerman, it's a huge adjustment, obviously. Since, you know, you're used to seeing throughout the series Greinke throwing, you know, hardly ever throwing above 90, and then you have Josh James throwing 100. That's hard to hit. And you know what? James struck him out. So just all those opportunities. And then I think it's just all those opportunities. And Robinson Chirinos later at a home run to make it, I think it was 3-1, 4-1, which he could be a candidate for World Series MVP. Right? And in the 6th inning, runners on first and second. Trey Turner strikes out. So does Eaton. That's it. Will Harris, he did a really good job that night. You know, so the Nationals were 0 for 3 runners in scoring position. That was their game to win. They had an opportunity. And we talk about this. I feel like, at least from my point of view, Braves-Cardinals was that series of, I talked about that 3 weeks ago. I couldn't stop talking about control. I couldn't stop using that C word with the Braves-Cardinals series. Well, this series, this was the Nationals' opportunity to truly take control of the series. Game 3, win Game 3, and have a chance to clinch on Saturday night. And they didn't do that. They failed to do that. They failed to win the game. In Game 4, similar story. So it's Patrick Corbin against Jose Urquidy, which Jose Urquidy, was started. I think he only pitched twice that playoffs. Pitched in Game 3 against Tampa, gave them some innings when the game was out of hands, and then pitched against the Yankees in that Game 6 bullpen game. This is a similar deal. And Patrick Corbin on paper, I mean, Patrick Corbin's made this year, his contract has probably made 100 times more money. Had way more money in his bank account for sure, and got way more money from the Nationals. And on paper, this is the game that the Nationals win, right? This is their opportunity to really pounce. So the Astros stole Game 3 from them. Okay. They win Game 4, right? And you have Scherzer in Game 5. Things are looking pretty darn good, right? Bregman and Gurriel hit RBI singles right away. And it's 2-0 just like that. And then by the 4th inning, Robin Chirinos hits a two-run home run. It's 4-0. And granted, the way he's throwing, the way his slider moved, it's like 82. It's the speed of what some curveballs are. Is about as much movement on a slider as I've seen pretty much all year. It just has so much movement. I mean, it'd be interesting to look it up, but there's numbers that say, I guess you'd say that was horizontal movement. It really had a lot of that. He pitched really well. Gave them 5 innings. Just 5 shutdown innings, more than they could have ever asked for. And they basically gave it to the bullpen. And the 6th inning, they had one opportunity. You know, bases loaded. Juan Soto's up. This is your opportunity to get back into the game. And what does he do? Weak RBI ground out. Then Howie Kendrick, tying runners on second, third, strikes out. So throughout the series, and I'm saying this as a Nationals fan, so many moments you're like, okay, just get these runs across, and they didn't do it. I mean, what were they? 1 for 19 with runners in scoring position? I think the only hit was that Robles triple. Oh, no, he was not in runners in scoring position. I'm sorry, but 1 for 19 for crying out loud. 1 for 19. Maybe the series is different if they're 5 for 19 or 6 for 19. I don't know. They don't hit with runners in scoring position. And in the 7th inning, it's still 4-1. Bases are loaded. Bregman comes up. It's a grand slam. So just like that, the Alex Bregman grand slam completely breaks the game open. So it's 8-1 now. And you think, and it's 2-2. You know it's going to be 2-2. And it was basically a long, slow, painful loss in Game 4. That's what it was like. That's what it was like. It just slowly ended. So going into Game 5, you think, okay, they have Scherzer on the mound against Cole. You beat him once. It's 2-2. But surely they can win Game 5, at least have a chance to clinch in Houston, right? Well, you know what? I get the news about 3 hours before first pitch. I found out around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And reading stories about it, Scherzer just knew when he woke up he wasn't going to pitch. I mean, he could barely move his arm or whatever. He couldn't do simple things at home. And they gave him a cortisone shot, so maybe he can pitch in Game 7. Game 6 is Strasburg's game. I hope Scherzer can be ready to go in Game 7. But you know what? Max Scherzer scratched, and you have Joe Ross started. So you go from having Max Scherzer, who's this era, this decade, certainly last 5 years, you could say who's the best pitcher in baseball overall last 5 years? You'd say Scherzer, who's won 3 Cy Youngs in his career. If it weren't for DeGrom's historic year, may have won a 4th, and if he didn't get hurt this year, may have won a 5th. So Scherzer is one of the great pitchers of all time. Has a lot of hardware, 3 Cy Young awards. That's an elite category right there, including winning back-to-back in 16 and 17. So you have Max Scherzer. You think he's going to pitch, and he can't. And now it's Joe Ross. So Joe Ross, we pitched fairly well down the stretch for the Nationals. He was a reliable 5 starter for them down the stretch, but was not used at all in the playoffs. I'm trying to remember when he pitched in the playoffs. Certainly not in any meaningful moments. I know he pitched in Game 3, I think, gave him an inning. Pitched in Game 3. And you're calling him the starter who hasn't really started an official game since September 29th, the last day of the regular season. So he goes a month without pitching. And that's a very tall task. All right? Yeah, it's 2-2. Yeah, there's a huge amount of pressure. The Astros have a huge advantage right then and there with Garrett Cole on the mound. It's almost like, but again, Joe Ross, remember when he pitched before, Joe Ross is not say the type of pitcher that Tyler Glasnow is or Blake Snell is, who Cole pitched against, or even Luis Severino type who he pitched against in New York, or even Max Scherzer. Of all the pitchers, he's by far the worst starting pitcher. I mean, no offense on Joe Ross, but that's just the facts. I mean, the 4 starting pitchers he faced, between, again, Glasnow, Severino, Scherzer, Joe Ross will be the 5 starter in that rotation. And he wasn't supposed to pitch really in this series at all. He was on the roster. He didn't pitch at all against the Cardinals. I don't think he pitched any at all against the Dodgers either, right? So, and yeah, he was loose. I think he's doing bullpens, was throwing simulated games. I think he's being ready just in case when this moment actually came. But I don't fault Joe Ross at all. It's him against Garrett Cole now. If he was starting Game 4, that would be another story. But just the timing was terrible. Scherzer getting scratched. Just going into that, I think, okay, they have Scherzer. They can win with Scherzer. They can have a 3-2 lead going back to Houston with Strasburg. And you might have thought, 3-1 lead, giving the ball to Scherzer. You'd have thought they had the World Series in the bag. That never happened. So in the second inning, this is when it all starts. The Astros putting the ball in play. Yuli Gurriel, it's a single off Joe Ross. Literally off him that I think deflected off his glove or whatever. Yordan Alvarez, who was a DH, comes up, hits a home run. I think twice in that game he beat the shift. He hits a home run. So it's 2-0 Astros just like that. And that's one thing the Astros did throughout the series. Crowd silencers. You think about the first inning. Think about game 3. It wasn't as much so in game 3. Sure, it was like that some when Redd hit those home runs, but think about crowd silencers. In game 4, the Chirinos home run that makes it 4-0, and the Bregman grand slam just takes all the energy out of the stadium. If the Nationals had any shot of winning, that's one of those things that says game over, right? Again, it was 0-0 in the second inning, and Alvarez hits that grand slam, and the crowd just quiets down, and then you go. And here's the moment where you think the Nationals finally have an opportunity to win, do something. First and third, no outs. I think it was Soto and Kendrick, right? And Ryan Zimmerman, there's a slider. He's nowhere close to hitting it. It's one of the worst swings I've ever seen Zimmerman make, probably throughout his career. Certainly this playoffs, he strikes out. And Victor Robles hits him a double play. So once again, they have an opportunity to cut into the deficit. They don't do it. They strand runners. It happened again. So just like that, you're 0 for 2 from runners in scoring position. And then the fourth inning, 2 outs in the fourth, there's a pitch. And I heard people talk about it. I kind of went through, I saw the condensed game. I saw so many pitches in this game like, oh, just missed. I think there's 3 incidents that would have been strike 3s, including later in the game. Right? So they should be out of the inning. It's 2-0. Correa hits a home run. Another way to take the crowd out of energy. The crowd's on its feet. There's 2 strikes. And what does Correa do? He hits a home run. And just like that, it is 4-0. So the air is being taken out of the stadium once again. So then you go on to, you have that. I think the moment of the game where the Nationals had the most hope was when Soto hit that home run. And then they kind of rallied that inning. I think Zimmerman walks on a pitch that was strike 3, and Robles is about to walk. That pitch is clearly outside of the plate. I mean, we know we do the modern things of pitch cast and pitch track. That ball is clearly out of the strike zone. Yet for some reason, it's called strike 3. That was a missed call. I mean, that was clearly a missed call. That was clearly off the plate. So Garrett Cole goes 7 innings and just doesn't, he goes 7 innings, 9 strikeouts. He was dominant once again. The moment I thought they could beat him was the first thing they made him work. Like, okay, 17 pitches, they're making him work. That all but disappeared later on. He ended up throwing 110 pitches, 9 strikeouts. So again, in every game this series, in all of his playoff starts, 4 of them he's gone at least 7 innings and pitched into the 8th twice. Did that against the Rays. So he talked about how dominant he was against the Rays. That was a big storyline. He's the single reason why they beat the Rays. I mean, the Rays took them to a 5th game. Remarkable. Against the Yankees, the storyline was he finally looked beatable. To then against the Nationals, the first time around, like Garrett Cole can get beat, and this team just beat Garrett Cole. To then, you think, oh, so the Garrett Cole we saw last night was much closer to the Garrett Cole that we saw against Tampa. We did not have, and against the Yankees, I think he had 6 walks against the Yankees, if I don't remember correctly, right? He had 6 walks. He was walking. I think he's had all sorts of opportunities to score against him. The Nationals, that wasn't the case. While he was great this start, this was his 3rd best start of the playoffs, which is obviously really dominant. If that's your 3rd best start, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, I'll take it for sure. one of the great postseason performances of all time of what Garrett Cole had this year. And he was, maybe he was okay, and he had one okay or one not very good start. And it was 4-1 then, and then George Springer basically went on to hit a home run, put the game out of reach. So, thinking about Springer, he's had a good series. So now, just like that, you go into the weekend with the Nationals thinking they're going to win the World Series at home. They just have to win 2 out of 3. That's it. That's all they have to do. It seemed fairly simple. I thought the Nationals were going to win the World Series this weekend. I really did. I felt very optimistic. They're up 2-0 going back home. It all ends. And now they might become the first team since the 1996 Yankees to win the first 2 on the road and end up losing the series. That is a strong possibility. They're going back to Houston. In order for the Nationals to win the World Series, the road team would have to win the series every single time, which that has never happened from my recollection. So in the series, Nationals at Nationals Park, and it is not pretty. Trey Turner, 1 for 14, 136 in the World Series. He had opportunity to contribute. The leadoff man not coming through. That's a huge reason. He disappeared in the series. Eaton, 2 for 11. Rendon having a poor series, 3 for 12. Soto's 2 for 11. Zimmerman's 1 for 9. Robles 2 for 10. You can go on and on. The Nationals didn't hit. The Nationals just simply didn't hit. Remember that game where they put up 12 runs? They scored just 3 this entire series. At home in Washington, just 3 runs. And going back to earlier, was there the game where we thought they had the most chance to win? Game 3. That's the game they're in it the most. Since eventually the Astros, if the Nationals were in it all, the Astros just got out of jams, and you know what they did? They used their bats. They hit home runs. I mean, think about it. They just hit home runs. I mean, in the series, I think, I know Chirinos hit one. I think Bregman hit one. Chirinos hit another one. Right then last night, Correa, Alvarez, Springer. So in this series, they've hit 6 home runs. The Nationals, I think, Soto with that only home run, since I know the only run scored in Game 3 was that Robles triple and that RBI ground out by Soto. Right? So they've had no offense. Soto, for I guess you could say, he's been their offense this series. In Washington, I don't know. This is all Astros in Washington. Game 1 was a close game. Game 2 was basically all Nationals. So we're asking, so I said the Astros would win in 6. And they have a 3-2 lead, and they're in position to just do that. Am I surprised they're up 3-2? If you'd asked me at the beginning of the series, hey, will the Astros be up 3-2 going back to Houston? I would have said, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. They'll probably win. Probably go win the first 2 games in Houston, split, maybe win 2 out of 3 in Washington. Maybe something like that happens, right? Well, they won 3 out of 3 in Washington. So yes, I am surprised at 3-2. This is not what I anticipated. As a fan, this is not what I anticipated. This is not what I planned for. But you have to acknowledge just how great the Astros are. So I want to talk now World Series MVP candidates. I don't think it's too early to start talking about that. Springer, if he has a big, huge game in Houston's hit 2 home runs this series, including basically putting the game away last night. Altuve, 360. It depends on what he does in Game 6. If he has a really strong performance in Game 6, I would give it to him as well. Michael Brantley hitting 400 in this series, had 2 RBIs in Game 3, the turning point of the series, really. This is his opportunity. I wouldn't be surprised Robinson Chirinos hit 2 home runs if he starts in Game. What if he were to start in Game 6 and hits another home run? He could be series MVP as a catcher. Yordan Alvarez hit that home run, 6 for 11, 3 for 3 in Game 5. Completely dominant. The reason why he's not in the lineup was for defense. Did not play in Games 3 or 4 other than pinch hitting. I think he's the favorite right now. Verlander, if he's great in Game 6, and Cole, I don't know if you give it to him. I don't know. He had a poor Game 1. Verlander, but if I had to give it to somebody right now, it would be Alvarez in my mind. I mean, there's so many candidates. It's really not that close. But it would be Alvarez. And again, the Astros and their process, in conclusion, they have a 3-2 lead in the World Series. So the point is, they're about to win yet another World Series, which would be 2 in 3 years, coming off 3 straight 100-win seasons. So they lost 100 games 3 years in a row to get to where they are today. And think about who contributed to them and how and why their process works. Correa, number 1 overall pick in 2012, hitting home runs, getting hits in Nationals Park. Bregman, hitting a grand slam, right? Having a huge game 4. Number 2 overall pick in 2015. And Springer, first round pick 2011. People from the process and why it's working, right? That's why it's working. Is they're hitting home runs. The reason why, and think about it, Springer being World Series MVP and now hitting 7 World Series home runs for the Astros in their 2 years. Or Bregman contributing huge part of both World Series runs just out of who was in college just 4 years ago. Or how about Correa, right? Their process has worked tremendously, and that's why right down the road in Baltimore, the Orioles, who have Mike Elias and Sig Mejdal. I read the whole book Astro Ball. I highly recommend it. It's a great book to read. That's the reason why the Astros are just 1 win away from winning the World Series, and they're about to do it again. So once again, the Astros facing adversity. Against Tampa, they had to play Game 5 against Tampa. Right? The Rays almost shocked the world. To then the Yankees. Sure, that was a hard-fought 6-win series. But being down 2-0, their season in danger at the most. The upstart Nationals may win the World Series. That 12-3 beatdown in Game 3. They did not let them phase them. They came into Washington. They did what they needed to do to win Game 3. And then Game 4 and 5, the Nationals started to get close. They shut them down, and then boom, grand slam Bregman or Correa, Springer hitting those home runs. I mean, think about it. 6 runs, 6 out of their 7 runs in Game 3 or Game 5 were off those 2 home runs, right? Half of their runs came from Bregman. They're hitting home runs. They're putting the ball in play. And the lineup that doesn't strike out, that walks. And maybe from this Astros lineup, we were wondering why they hadn't done more in the playoffs. Well, here they are. They come into Washington. They're about to win 2 World Series in 3 years. So, going back to Houston now, talking about Game 6, it's going to be Strasburg against Verlander. Verlander has a chance for the second time in 2 years to close out the World Series and win his second World Series. Game 7 has been undecided. It will probably be Zach Greinke. And do the Nationals go with Scherzer? Will it be Sanchez? I don't know, but the timing couldn't have been worse for them. They're down 3-2. They're still underdogs. This has been a fun, as for the Nationals, it's been a fun playoff run. I've tried to enjoy every moment. I tried to really soak in wild card day all day long. I really tried to soak in that day. I was so excited that they're playing the wild card game. And it should have ended right then and there until Soto got that 3-run single. It was basically an error against the Dodgers. It should have ended then, but it did not. It almost ended 3 weeks ago. Cardinals' run was a sweep to now here we are. So look, Game 3 is about 30 hours away, or Game 6 is about 30 hours away. I will try to enjoy those moments, and this has been a great Nationals team. This has been a great run. I've had fun rooting for this team this year. As for the Astros, if I see them win the World Series, I will be disappointed for sure. Since I knew they had a 2-0 lead, I was anticipating they're going to win the World Series. I thought this was the year. If you'd asked me 72 hours are they win the World Series, I said yes, they are. And I still think this Nationals team can win the World Series. It is not over yet. For this team, it's not over until it's over. Many times throughout the playoffs when they thought it was over, like when they lost Game 3, the Dodgers said, the Dodgers just ran all over them in Game 3. They're the better team. Here they come. They're going to win the series. To then against the Cardinals, they swept the Cardinals. And here they are. They have to win 2 elimination games once again. They're 3-0 in elimination games right now. So can this Nationals team make one more run? They've been 18, 19, and 31. They have stayed in the fight. The question is, can they finish the fight? So in terms of when I'll come back on, I don't know. Maybe I'll come on Wednesday morning to talk about the end of the World Series. Maybe Thursday. I don't know. If the Nationals win the World Series, I will try to make it to the parade. so I may not get to come on until maybe after a potential parade. But at this point, it is more the Astros are more likely to win the World Series than the Nationals. It has been fun talking playoff baseball. This is probably the last time I will talk playoff baseball. And if the Nationals lose the series and honor this run, I will come back to talk. Even if the Astros win the World Series, I will wear my Nationals hat, this Nationals hat, and sunglasses once again to just to celebrate this run. And even if the Nationals lose the World Series, I'm going to spend time on YouTube this offseason just watching the team throughout the season, just enjoying this team, and just reliving all the moments they had to get to here, since it's been an incredible ride. It's the best Nationals team in franchise history, by far. And they can still win the World Series. It's not over yet, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll see what happens. As a Nationals fan, hopefully they do. Hopefully the Nationals don't win 2 in 3 years. So, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.